All right, so today we're going to do commercial grading, like I said, and I have a site selected here that I'm going to check out a vault. And a lot of times, just talking about files, um, in our CAD structure, we have that you would do the grading in the GRD file, in the CAD standard. Um, but that's not to say that you might not have your grading in your PRCL file as well. And what I'm finding is that since you have a corridor model in your centerline drawing, your profile centerline drawing, um, it's the easiest thing to, wherever you have that corridor model is really where you want to have the rest of your feature lines for grading. So, if you don't have that situation, you want to put your grading in your GRD file, but don't feel it's too restrictive to um, get it to where it feels more appropriate. Wherever you have your corridor model, that's where you're really going to have the rest of your site grading because they sort of mesh together. So let that be as may. If you do have questions about that, don't hesitate to give me a call. So this is what I have here. I have this commercial site, and we're not going to be able to grade this whole thing. It's not that quick and easy with Civil 3D, but we are going to be able to talk about the main concepts. Where I feel people struggle the most is how to even get started with this overwhelming task. And it really isn't that difficult as long as you always start with the building pad elevation. So if you've graded by hand or in other situations and you're grading with the contours, it might seem a little backwards, but you got to remember, if I take this building pad here, really floats on the site. I can move, this is sort of one unit, right? I can move this up or down, back and forth, the whole thing at once, and since it's in AutoCAD or Civil 3D, you can grab the whole thing and slide it up or down, back and forth, or raise and lower. So as long as the grades are coming off that building at the appropriate slopes and everything, I can move the whole site up or down depending on how it daylights when I get up to here or down to here. And that's something to really keep in mind and on how you're going to tackle this grading. So we're always, on a commercial site, you're always coming off the building pad. Always, always, always. I can't say it more than that. You're always coming off the building pad, the first floor elevation. Now, how do you know what that first floor elevation is going to be? Well, you can do some quick math, look at your grades over here or over there, wherever seems it's going to seem tight for you on the site, and do some quick math and try to guesstimate a first floor elevation. Maybe I see that this is a tight spot. I'm going to come up, just knowing this site, it all drains down, from the north to the south, and I'm going to, actually from the east to the west. You can see my drawings rotated here. So I might do some math to come up with a 3-to-1 slope, give myself some room here, go 2%, go over, go up 4 feet because this is a loading dock, and then guess a first floor elevation. But at the end of the day, you are guessing. On this project, I'm going to guess a correct number just because I've graded it already. And this building first floor elevation is going to be 518.40. So we're going to go ahead and start with that. And to start with that elevation here, I'm just going to turn my surface off again, set this back to no display so I don't have to see it. And I really just need a perimeter polyline. One thing that's important in Civil 3D is every time you open a file, not check out the drawing you're in. If I even check out another drawing, it's always going to set my Z lock to 0, or to lock to 0 elevation. And I created a button here. I believe there's a post on the CAD Management Channel page how to do that. If not, that's something I should post on here, and I'll check on that. Can't remember if I did one or not. And but you don't need the button. To turn the Z-Lock off, just go into the Options dialog and go to the Drafting tab and uncheck this Replace Z Values with Current Elevation. The reason this is checked on is because a lot of stuff in Civil 3D is drawn at elevation, even your pipe profiles and your inlets. So we didn't want people, lay people, making the mistake of checking out a drawing, measuring in between 2 inlets, and getting the 3-dimensional distance. Really, most of the time, people just want a 2D distance. So we always have that check on just to be cautious. If you're grading in Civil 3D, to me, you're an advanced user. if you're successfully grading in the fashion I'm going to show here. And I think you can handle unchecking that checkbox. And if you don't, it's not like you're going to make a mistake and report a wrong distance to a contractor or client. You're just going to say, oh, I forgot to turn that off, and go turn it off. So that's there. Always have to uncheck that. Going to use this to our advantage right now, though. I'm going to keep that check back on. I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to type in the command elevation. And then I'm going to set my elevation to 51840. And what that is going to do now is whatever I snap to, when I draw a polyline or any line work, it's going to be at the elevation 51840. So I'm just going to use the polyline command and go ahead and snap around this building. Okay. And if I hover over one of those nodes, you can see down here in the elevation coordinate display here. If I hover over the nodes, they remain on 51840. If I change my elevation back to 0, grab that line, hover over it, it's going to be 51840. Okay? So that gets my building first floor perimeter. Now, haven't been paying attention to layers too much here, so I drew it on the wrong layer, drew it on layer 0. I want to draw all my feature lines on this C3D surface feature line layer. So what do I mean by a feature line? And I'm going to move that over here in just a minute. The feature line is in Civil 3D is equivalent to the 3D polylines in Land Desktop. So what are 3D polylines? Well, a normal AutoCAD polyline everybody should be used to can only draw at one constant elevation. So if that polyline starts off at whatever, elevation 500, the entire polyline is going to be at elevation 500. It cannot vary. Where a 3D polyline can. Each vertice of a 3D polyline, this is just a normal polyline, but each vertice of a 3D polyline can have a different elevation. And that's essentially the difference between a polyline and a 3D polyline in AutoCAD. Well, a feature line essentially is a AutoCAD 3D polyline, but a feature line, quote, quote, a feature line is Civil 3D's version of a 3D polyline, and there's additional properties. So one toolbar you're going to need to pull up on your screen to grade in Civil 3D is this feature line toolbar. So to do that, of course, you just right-click on any blank space in your drawing in your session here, go to Civil, and go to Feature Lines and check that on. So we're going to look at this toolbar here, and there's a lot going on here, and I don't want to get people too overwhelmed with it. I'm going to breeze through some of this because a lot of this we covered in boot camp, so hopefully people are sort of remembering this as I'm going. But this is the feature line toolbar. The tools we're going to use today are simply going to be create feature line. We're going to use this quick edit. Here's the break, join, trim. Here's a fillet. And here's an offset. So I have all these tools. They're all very useful. But just for today, baby steps, we're just going to use create, edit, trim, break, join, fillet, and offset. Okay? I might describe some of these at the end of the set, these other ones at the end of the session, and you can look into those as well. If you're in AutoCAD and you hover over a button, it tells you what it is and what it will do. And I'll talk about some of these other ones here at the end. But just for now, just keep it simple. I'm actually going to pull this over and up, and I can refer back to that as we go here. All right, so that's this same toolbar. I'm going to go ahead and drag this off to the side there for my convenience. And let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my 3D surface feature lines and take this and move this perimeter polyline for the building to that layer. Now, as you can see, this site has already been graded out, and most of the feature lines of 3D polylines are already there. Like I said, I'm not going to be able to grade this entire site in an hour from scratch, but I can grade out certain features. If you look, this parking lot, I'm going to turn off my XREF here. This parking lot has no feature lines for it or 3D polylines. So we're going to go ahead and grade that out, and I'll show you how to do that. And we have a variety of features there, that's why they're called feature lines, that we have to define three-dimensionally with our feature line tools. Another thing we're going to look at today is going to do a grading the spillway, talk about some surface smoothing commands that Civil 3D has that Land Desktop did not, which make a pretty big impact. We're going to look at how to grade a retaining wall, pretty simple and easy. Right here is our property line. You can see our 2-to-1 slopes. This is a 2-to-1 slope projected out. How do we go about grading that in? And we'll see how far we get with those tasks to start. Okay, so to get started again, or to get back to it, we have this 518.4 first floor elevation polyline here. Now, a thing that I like to do that I tell people they don't do it, and at some point in time they will probably once they grade with Land Desktop or Civil 3D for a while, they'll turn on this additional feature and then they'll go, oh my gosh, I can't believe, how did I live without this before? It's so much faster when I have this thing turned on. So listen to me up front, please, on this one. And what you really want to do is have two views. You want to have a view where you're looking straight down on the drawing and a view that you're seeing the drawing in 3D. And we'll make that readily apparent. Again, we also talked about that in boot camp. So to do that, I can go ahead and type in the vports, plural, command. I'm going to split my view into 3. So it's going to split my model space into 3 views. I'm going to do dash vports, hit J for join the bottom 2, and then I'm going to do ddv point, not plural, hit enter, change to any rotation angle. This is your horizontal angle, so it will rotate the drawing around its horizontal axis, and this is the vertical axis, and I usually try a number of 15. So now I can see my whole site in 3D view. Here's the XREF, here's the feature lines or 3D polylines, and then I can see in the bottom view. The power of this is I can draw lines between the two views. So I can start a line here, snap, go up to the top window, and place it using the top window. And we'll see here in a second how we're going to use that. So to get started, what I want to do is come off of this building with right here is a sidewalk. So this sidewalk goes through here all the way up to this location. And, I want to come off at a certain slope. So the tool that we're going to use the most is going to be this Create Feature Line tool right here. First one, it's the same one up here. Okay? So we're going to create a feature line, so we're going to use the Draw Feature Line command. Hover over it, Draw Feature Line. Go ahead and pick that, and I get this dialog. Now, again, we covered some of this already, but feature lines must be a part of a site. And I think in boot camp we talked in detail what a site is. A site does not mean like, we're working on this site as defined by, the location map. Think of a site as a group. Anything in the same site is going to react together, which is good or bad. You do not want to have alignments a part of a site. You do not want to have your feature lines a part of the same site that your parcels are. They should be in different drawings to begin with, so it shouldn't be an issue. But I see that happening a lot, and then where I see it happening, I get calls about the program always crashing. That's why. So you got to really pay attention to the site. To keep things simple, in the template, there's 3 sites set up for you that are empty. One is Grading Master, another one was Parcels Proposed, and a final one was Survey. Survey uses the survey site for their points and parcels and whatnot, and survey figures. The Parcels Proposed is if you're doing, making a new drawing, going to put proposed parcels in it. And the Grading Master is to put those feature lines in when you're making a new file to start your grading. So let's use that Grading Master. I deleted the other ones using the prospector before, so we just have one. And you can do the same thing. We're not going to set any name or style. Just leave this as it is. Just hit OK. What we want to do now is we're going to snap we want to get to the end elevation of, or the building elevation at this location. So I can use my plan view, and I can come down here and just snap to the endpoint. And it's going to prompt me for an elevation here. So if I know it, which I do, because it's right outside of my building first floor, it's 518.40. Cool, no problem. So I enter that elevation. Now it's asking for me for the next point. So I'm going to snap to the back of curb. And then it says, okay, you keep watching down here at the command prompt. Let me bring this up here a little bit. Of course, it exited the command when I do that. Go back in. All right, so I want to snap to the end of the curb here, and it's saying, right, just like any other AutoCAD command, it's asking me to specify grade. That's what it's asking for out here. If I type in a number, that's going to be grade. I can change that to specify slope, elevation, difference, pull it off of the surface, or do a transition. Grade is actually what I want in this situation, because I want to come down at 2%. So I want to come down at -2%. So I'm going to type in -2 for my grade. Hit enter. Hit enter again. And now you can see if I click on this line, hover over the elevation node there, keep looking down here at this elevation coordinate indicator there. Now I'm at 518.213. Okay, so that's the elevation of my back of curb. Another way to verify that that is the correct slope that I typed in is I can use this quick elevation editor. If you remember, that's the other tool we're going to use, is QEdit. So with this quick elevation editor, I can go ahead and click on that. And then I can hover over this feature line, and it will tell me that's -2%. If I go to the endpoint, I'll get a little triangle, it'll tell me the elevation there, or the elevation up here at the start. So that's a nice little tool to read and verify, you know, what slopes feature lines are at, or change them. I can go ahead and click on that and say, and watch up here in 3D view, and I can say change that to -5, and you'll see that line move down a little bit. For a more drastic representation of that, I'll do -50. You can see it slides way down. But I just want to keep that same, so I'm going to do -2. Bring that back up. Hit OK. At this point, and even prior to this point, I probably should have made sure that my Z-Lock toggle is turned off. So let's go ahead and do that real quick and go to Options. So that's going to interfere here in just a minute. And I'm going to uncheck that, replace Z-value with current elevation, and hit OK. Move this command window, I guess, back down. And let's continue on. So really, I just need to do the same thing on the other side. There's a majority of ways I could do that, but I'm just going to keep it simple and come off this first floor again. Hit the draw feature line, just hit OK there. At the dialog, snap to the endpoint, 518.4. Come down here. And my grade is going to be -2. Hit enter. Move my window over here to see that, and everything looks good. So I'm coming off for the back of curb. This is where it comes in and where you want to use 3D view. If I go ahead and hit draw feature line, I want to draw a line connecting the back of curb. And I'm going to hit draw feature line, hit OK. And if I snap to here, luckily, I got 518.12, which is the elevation because we saw and looked and everything was okay. A majority of time, you'll do that, and because it snaps down to this elevation, if you remember, there's an AutoCAD line underneath this feature line. This elevation will read 0, and so you don't know what the elevation is because you don't have it memorized. It's not your building first floor elevation. So an easier way to do that is to just simply use your 3D view to draw this line that's going to connect those two feature lines together. I'm going to hit draw feature line again, hit OK. Just use my end snaps and snap up there, snap over here. It's telling me the grade, specify grade. It's telling me that it's 0 between. Looks good to me. Hit enter, hit enter again. So that connected that back of curb. Okay. Now moving right along, I want to extend that out. I want to go, hold that same elevation out to the edge of the parking lot here. So I'm just going to draw a simple AutoCAD line off the end here, just so I can extend that feature line across to the end of the parking lot. Just use the AutoCAD extend command. All right, so got the top back of sidewalk. The next thing I want to do is offset that down to the face of sidewalk. Okay, that will be using our third command, the offset command. I don't know why they have it all the way here at the end of the toolbar, which is way down here. It should, to me, be over here because you use it so much. But nevertheless, the offset command is going to be our next one to offset that feature line. Do know you can use just the AutoCAD offset command, but that's only going to give you a horizontal offset. So if I say offset 5, I can grab this feature line and offset it over. But it doesn't give me any options to change the vertical elevations of that feature line. I can just offset it horizontally because the AutoCAD offset command, that's all it does. The feature line offset command, which is again down here, it's called stepped offset, works very similar to the AutoCAD offset. In AutoCAD offset, you have to enter the distance first. So I want to change it or do a horizontal offset of 0.67. Go ahead and enter that. Then I'm going to select my feature line. All right. Then I'm going to pick the side, just like the normal AutoCAD offset command. Now, with this command, though, I get a bunch of specific elevation editing options that you normally don't get with AutoCAD offset. I can specify an elevation difference. I can do a grade, a slope. I can set the entire feature line to one elevation or change it varying, so it would ask me for each node what I want to set the elevation for. What I want to do in this situation, because it's a curb and I know what the face of the curb is supposed to be, I want to do the elevation difference. On this project, we did an 8-inch curb on this side. I don't know why. Usually we do a ½ foot, but in this one it's 8-inch, so it's going to be negative 0.67 because I'm going over 0.67 and down 0.67. Go ahead and do that. All right. Now we're starting to get something here. All right, so let's keep moving along. This parking lot, I want it to drain away from the building. Okay. So tidy up a little bit here. I want to first trim out this feature line because you can see my bottom of curb should end here, not at the back. So, I'm going to just draw a little line off of there so I can trim it. Sometimes you can just use the line that's in the XREF, but always you can draw a little line and that will work. And for this one, we're going to use the trim command. Now, what's a little different with feature lines, I think, again, we covered some of this, is that you have to use the break, trim, and join commands in the feature line toolbar. You cannot use AutoCAD break, trim, or join. Funny enough, you can use the AutoCAD extend command, like you can just type extend and extend feature lines. But if I type in trim, which is using AutoCAD's trim, I can't, it won't do it. But if I use the trim under the feature line toolbar, no problem. Select it, hit spacebar, trim that line right off. Do the same thing for the other side. See if I can get lucky here and use the XREF. Yeah, can't use the XREF. I think that's I think this trim under the feature line toolbar doesn't allow you to use the XREF. I think that's right, because if I use the AutoCAD trim command, yeah, I can use the content in the XREF, but the feature line trim command, the line work has to be active in your drawing. So feature line trim command, just have to draw a little reference line there, trim that out. Okay. Next, I want to come off this parking lot and slope this parking lot away at 2%. And these are some of the decision-making, components of grading that that's a whole different subject. That's not really what I'm trying to show exactly here, but just trying to show some techniques and how to do this grading this parking lot. So I want to come down at 2%. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to come back over here, hit draw feature line, hit OK. Again, I'm going to use my 3D view and snap to the end of the bottom of the curb there. Hit enter. Come down here and snap in or click into my plan view. And I'm just going to use my perpendicular command, and I'm going to draw a feature line down through all this edge of road here down to the perpendicular of the end of the parking lot. And it says grade, and it snapped to 0, so it's telling me the current grade, which you can see is going way down, is negative 431, blah, blah, blah. I want that to be negative 2. I'm going to draw that out. And I want to do the same thing on the other side. Now, this is where it comes into play here, where you've got to be paying attention. These feature lines, which are already drawn in, are a part of this site. So if I snap a feature line from the end of this stall here, and come across and do perpendicular, just like I did before. I don't want to do it. But if I snap a feature line across there, that is going to try to adjust these feature lines, which are dynamically linked to the corridor, and pull those down to match. And if you do that, that's where your grading's probably going to get screwed up, or the computer's going to get crazy on you and could crash. You need to you don't want to have overlapping feature lines in the same site. So how do I get around this? What am I going to do? Well, sites are free. You can make as many as you want. So I'm going to go up here to Site in my prospector, click on it, hit New. I'm going to call this Temp. Okay? That makes a new site. So now I'm good to go. I'm going to go hit Draw Feature Line. Make sure to change this to Temp since I just created it. It has that set to current already, but I could switch to either one. I'm going to hit OK. Snap to the end of this bottom curve of the parking lot here. Go perpendicular. And negative 2%. Okay, now they cross over and they don't interact with each other. Once we get this cleaned up and trimmed out, I'll move this segment, because we're going to keep this part of it. I'm going to move that to back to the original site so that they all interact ultimately. This is sort of what I'm making here is a temporary surface. If you can are taking notes or paying attention, I'm making a blocked off surface or a plane for this parking lot. So let's do the next and final piece here. I want to come in, draw feature line again. I'm going to sit back to my grading master since I'm not going to overlap any. Hit OK. I'm going to come off the bottom. I have to draw some construction line work here. Hold on. There we go. I want to come off the middle of this island. So I'm going to do an apparent intersection. Mark. I'm doing a presentation. Hold on. Sorry about that. That's what Do Not Disturb is for. I forgot to set it. Sorry, everybody. So I'm going to use apparent intersection. Let me back up here a second. Draw feature line. Master grading is my site. Hit OK. I'm going to right-click, do apparent intersection. And a lot of people don't use this this OSnap. It's just an AutoCAD OSnap. The reason is because they can't get it to work because most snaps are one, like you set the end snap, you pick the end. This is a double entry snap. So I'm going to hit apparent intersection, and I have to pick two lines. I have to pick the apparent intersection of this line, and then I'll pick this line as well. The first line I use, that's where it's going to pull out the elevation. So I need to hover over a piece of line work, and you can see closely there, I get a square and 3 dots. It's going to pick that line work, but it doesn't snap anywhere because it's saying the apparent intersection. I pick the line, it says, the pick I made, and then I'm going to use that construction line work I used. So hopefully that makes sense because you have to use the apparent intersection command a lot. You can save a lot of time. And then since I used the feature line first and then this construction line second, it yanked out the elevation for me automatically. So it's 517.54. Great. Sounds good to me. Hit enter. And now it's ready to go on to the next. So I'm going to come down here, do perpendicular to the end, set my grade, -2. So if you are a person that's been doing stuff by hand, contours, just let me cover this a second. You can notice we are not drawing contours. The computer takes care of drawing the contours part. Just like surveyors don't go out and survey the contours, they survey points. The computer draws the contours. Contours are not a surface. Contours are a 2D representation of a surface. So in the computer, you're going to go, right to the source and not waste any of that time, and you're going to make a surface directly. The contours, the computer will triangulate and all that and do that here in a little bit. So, that's what we're doing. If you were doing this by hand, all the actions I have done would be where you put your, if I was doing this by hand, I would have been doing it the exact same way as I'm doing it right now. I would have had a ruler, and I would have put the ruler here, and I would have came across, and I would have marked the elevation here, and I would have put the ruler here, and I would have did the math and came across, marked an elevation here and here. Then I would have known those elevations. Then I would have, I already would have known this elevation because I would have taken my ruler off the building, come across, put an elevation here, figured it out. I would have an elevation here I knew on scratch paper, an elevation here I knew on scratch paper. I would have figured out the distance in between them, the elevation difference, hashed off little marks where the contours would go, and then drawn in. So when I get people coming back to me and saying, I can contour faster by hand than I can in a computer, it's sort of comical because I can't even talk about it faster doing it by hand than you can do it. So it takes a lot more time, and they always conveniently forget that even though it's on paper, you still have to put it back in the computer and all that time that takes. And then getting in the computer, it's not very accurate at all. So all the time it takes to manually set all your spot elevations and all the time it takes to manually set all your top of grate elevations because you can't really trust the surface made by contours and so on and so forth. So, I'm not going to get into too much more detail on it, but if you're here listening, you're probably aware that it's not fast to draw by hand. And if you have that still in your mind and are thinking right now as I'm saying this, he's full of it, just disconnect now because you're never going to pick this up if you don't really want to. So that aside, we now are ready to pull a surface of this so we can do the rest of this parking lot. We're essentially done. One thing I did want to change is I have these all coming down at 2%, 2%, 2%. I want this middle one to be 1%. So let's go ahead and make that adjustment. I'm going to go to my quick elevation editor. Go ahead and get to the middle of that line. You can see it says -2. I'm going to click it, hit -1, enter, enter again. I'll get rid of this construction line work, don't need that. And I'm going to make a surface of this. So let's go ahead and do that. I have this, this is my finished grade surface. The only reason I put 01 or 07 because this is the 7th class and I'm trying to keep stuff, separated for this project. I'm going to hit create a new surface though because that's my finished grade. I'll use that here in a second. I'm just going to call this temp. And sure, I'll use a style here. Let's change the style down to Ref 01 1-foot contours. And that's just a reference surface, so it doesn't look like it's my finished grade, and so on and so forth. Hit OK. There's my new surface. Hopefully you know how to do that. And here's my temp. I'm going to go into it. And this should look very familiar. You know, if you're using Land Desktop, doing contours by hand or making surfaces, you've seen these definitions before. I'm going to add these all as break lines. I'm going to right-click, hit Add. I'm going to change my supplementing distance to 5, my mid-ordinate distance to 0.01. Make sure to hit Tab after you put in 0.01. Hit OK. And I'm just going to select these 3 feature lines. All right, and you can see it triangulated and drew a nice set of contours in there. Just to see what we have here for triangulation, because you do have to be aware of it. I'm going to right-click on the surface, grab one of the contours, which is the surface. Click Edit Surface Style. I'm going to turn on the triangles here. Hit OK. And you can see that's the triangle mesh I get going across that pad. So looks pretty decent. I could smooth it out a little more, but let's just go with that for now. Edit Surface Style again, turn that off. That's how you can see your triangles or not. It's all on the Surface Style, all under the Display tab. And yeah, that's pretty much it. To get the rest of this, say I want to fill out the rest of this parking lot. I'm going to run through that right now. What I want to do is I want to connect these 2 end pieces here. So I'm going to draw a feature line again, hit OK, snap to the endpoint there, tells me elevation, sure. Snap to the endpoint here, confirm the slope. If I hit E for elevation, you can see the elevation there again. I'm in good shape. So that takes care of that line. And here's the big saver, and here's the conceptual thing that you have to sort of master in doing it in the computer is, this is sloping just the way I want it to right now. I want it to slope across here, come down, and come off to the end of the parking lot. Ultimately, we put a rain garden right here. So this all slopes out into this rain garden. So how do I get these elevations of this curb? Well, I already have them. All I need to do is draw a polyline. And I can't exit the surface here, but draw a polyline on the, tracing the edge of the parking lot. And I can use another tool that it's not necessarily the one that we covered here. Should have actually used this one down here as well. But this tool is I'm going to convert this polyline, which is at 0 elevation. Look down here. It's going to be at 0 elevation. I'm going to convert that into a feature line. So I'm going to go up here and hit Create from Object. I already had that polyline selected. It's going to say, just choose the defaults, pick the site, so grading master would be where all our feature lines are ultimately going. Hit OK. So converted that into a feature line now. I want to go up to this button right here, this elevations from surface. Pick that, or that feature line, I'm going to pick that here in a minute, but I want to drape that feature line, which is still at 0, on to that temp surface. And knowing that the triangulation goes, through this line at different points, I'm going to click on here and hit Insert Intermediate Grade Breakpoints. So every time there's a slope change, it's going to insert a little grade breakpoint for me. Hit OK. Pick that feature line. Hit OK again. And what that did is it now draped that edge of the parking lot right onto my surface. So from there, I can come in and I can grab that with the trim command, trim out that line, and there's that side. Same thing for the parking lot islands. You don't ever focus on those until you're pretty much already done, until you know that this slope and everything is good to go. And then I'm just going to trace around these. see if I can do something here. Yeah, let's see if this works. Okay, that does. I can go into create feature line from object again. Notice down in the prompt here, I can hit X for XREF, and I can select that parking lot island, the bottom of the curb. Hit enter. It's going to suck that geometry not out of the XREF, but it will make a copy of it in this file and make a feature line of it. There's my feature line. It's at 0 elevation. And I'm going to drape that, onto my my temp surface, adding intermediate grade breakpoints. And there it is. Now, if I want to offset that up to make the back a curve, I do my offset command, 0.67. Looks good. Hit enter. Grab that. Come to the inside. Instead of negative 0.67, I want to do positive 0.67. Hit enter twice, and it offsets that up. And there's my curve on. So hopefully through this simple exercise, essentially that's commercial grading with the tool. You're drawing feature lines, drawing them out, drawing them here and there. What I would do in this situation is I extend this feature line up to here. You can see that there's a difference here, that I already had drawn in. So I can either snap the this road feature line down to the driveway or bring the driveway up. Looks like ultimately I brought the driveway up, but in this situation, let's just snap this back down. So let's take that, snap it back down. Okay, well now you have those two feature lines. What I did here is I extend this over. So I want to continue the cross slope that this surface has, whatever number that might be, across a couple more feet out to at least here. So how do I do that? I'm going to simply use the draw feature line command, hit OK, snap to the endpoint here, gives me the elevation, snap to some point with my ortho on over to here, and then I'm going to pull the elevation from the surface. I'm going to hit SU, and whatever, since I already have one surface that has elevation in this area, it doesn't really give me an option. If I had multiple surfaces, it would ask me to select which one. You can see that that's 51579 instead of 72, and enter, accept that. So now I've drawn a feature line that inherited the cross slope of this temp grading surface. I'm just going to draw a construction line to extend that out to. I draw from here to here, and then I can just finish out that curve, using the draping it onto the, to add this all to the surface and drape that on. And that's essentially how you need to really look at that. And that's what you do as you go throughout the entire site. I have to move on to these other things, but let me look. Are you making a feature line from an object you can assign an elevation? Yes. Jason Lutz was saying when you go into create feature line from object, and I hit X for XREF, I can go ahead and pick that line, and then right here I can click to assign elevation. I've noticed sometimes that hasn't worked though. It didn't do it. Maybe that's been fixed in the service pack. I just haven't tried it since then. So I've usually just made the feature line and then used the drape command there. But you can go right to the source and try that out. Hit assign elevations, and when you hit OK, it's going to ask you which surface to select. Since I don't have a surface in the area over here, it's not going to come up with that for there. But you get the point. So let's move on here. I've got a bunch of other things to cover, and hopefully we'll wrap through these. How do I ultimately, so we talked about some of the mechanics of how to build the surface. Let me clean up a little bit over here. That should be fine, I guess. Delete this one at least. Trim this out. Okay. So how do I get the mechanics of adding all these feature lines to my surface? So I do have this 21 surface up here, or this FG surface. How do I add all these feature lines in? An option I like to use, I think it's the easiest, just use my QSelect command. So type in QSelect, hit OK, hit layer, change your layer to, so you're going to be entire drawing, multiple layer, and then change your layer to be the surface features, Civil 3D surface feature line layer. Hit OK. That selects all the polylines, all the 3D polylines, all 3D lines or feature lines you have on that layer, anything that's on that layer. Then just go up to the prospector, right-click on break lines, hit Add. Again, always changing our supplementing distance factor to 5 and changing this to 0.01. Never just hit Enter. You always have to hit Tab first, or it's not going to take. Then hit OK or Enter. I believe I have that surface turned off. There it is. I just had to regen it again. But you can see the, it adding all that information in. So let's digress here for a second. The reason this looks all messed up is because there's a lot more work I'd have to do. I have this first floor elevation that goes the entire way. Actually, that needs to come across and drop down. So I can erase that. I already have that done. It's on my demo. And move that back. To my layer here. Anyways, I don't have time to clean that up, but you get the point, hopefully. Let's do the retaining wall here. Okay, so you have this site. It goes out beyond your this projected 2-to-1 slope goes out beyond your property line. So we need to do a retaining wall. So how do we figure out where we wanted that retaining wall to be? Let's turn some of this off just so you can see it. Well, we took the property line, which goes straight up through here. We offset it 5 foot back. Wanted to have at least 5 feet in between here for maintenance or whatnot. And then wherever that touches the daylight line at either end, that's where you know the retaining wall needs to start and go from there. It's pretty simple to do a retaining wall. I'm going to just create a line that's on the face of the retaining wall at the bottom. So I just created a nice 2D line. I can use my orbit command if I wanted to spin this around. You can see this drape onto the surface when I do it. And I want to bring that up and map it onto my EG surface. So let's go ahead and, go to my elevations from surface. First I have to make that a feature line, Create feature line from object. Pick that line I drew in and enter. Again, make sure to put it on temp because it's crossing a bunch of feature lines here. Okay. I'm going to go under here to create elevations from surface. Instead of my temp, I'm going to use my EG, existing grade. Add intermediate grade breaks. Okay. Pick that feature line. Okay, again, you can see this feature line is now draped on the existing grade, so it ties in here. That gap is because of the horizontal distance. And down here at the end. Sometimes if you rotate it around, you can see that a little better. That's underneath there. It's sort of hard to see. But yeah, it's underneath, this feature line for the bottom of the retaining wall is underneath these ones projecting out. So that's the bottom of the retaining wall. I want to do the top. So I'm going to go ahead and drape that across the back here. Go ahead and hit Create Feature Line from Object. Pick that top back. Hit Enter. Put that on my temp. Hit OK. And since I just created this surface, see how I have the finished grade surface? It projects through my retaining wall out to the daylight time. Well, I want this to come down at 2-to-1 slope, so I can project this top back of the retaining wall up onto that, or drape it onto my finished grade surface. So let's do that. Elevations from surface. This time I'm going to use my FG because that's what these contours represent. Insert intermediate grade breaks. Pick that feature line. You can see it's going to drape it onto my finished grade surface. Hit OK. There's that. At this point, it's just trimming these out. So let's turn this surface off again. So my trim command, maybe a fence. Turn off my snaps. Okay. Now the last one over here. This daylight line that goes all the way out off the property, I'm not going to need that anymore. Erase that. Get rid of the last couple here. And that's it. Now you can see you have a retaining wall here. So let's go ahead and update our FG surface. Turn that back on. You can see, since it's Civil 3D, as I was trimming those out, my surface was updating automatically, but it's not following the face of the wall like it should, so that's because I have to add this bottom of the wall in. So let's go ahead and delete the break lines I have in there. Right-click on the break lines, hit delete. Hit OK. You select, change it to layer. Selects all the feature lines. Come back to that FG surface, right-click, hit add. Add my supplementing distance factor. My mid-orient distance, always hitting tab. Hit OK. And there's our retaining wall. That's simple. Did curb islands, did retaining wall. I'm going to leave off here with spillway. If you wanted to hang out and see a spillway real quick, it's probably going to take me less than 5 minutes. I realize we're over 1 o'clock, so if you got to get going, I understand. But let me just do a spillway real fast. My spillway is going to be, I'm going to do a spillway right here, and it's going to be 50650. So I'm going to use my ID command to look at these contours. So that contour here is 505. So this should be up here, 506, right? Yeah, okay. And then this is 7, so 506.5 is halfway in between those. So let me just snap a line on my 506. Offset it 1.5. I think that's a 3-to-1 slope. Yep. There's that. So that's the inside edge of the spillway. Same deal over here. It's my outside edge. I'm going to offset this up. All right, so that line represents my bottom of spillway, still at 0 elevation. And actually, it's at 506 because I snapped to this contour. So if you click on it, You can see it's at 506, but still I need it to be 506 and a half. Going to use that, square this off a little bit here. And say I want my spillway to be, I don't know, 30 feet long. There's a 30-foot spillway. Okay. Move this down. I want it right there. And going to turn these into feature lines. Make sure I'm at the right spot over here. Yep. Hit create feature lines from object. Pick all these lines. Put those into the temp grading site. Now the feature lines, I'm going to join them all together. Actually, I'll leave them apart. I do need to change these. These are still at 506, as you can see. So I need to edit those to 506.5. So let me just go on each corner. That was 6.5. There's other ways to do this. That's maybe a little quicker, but 506.5, 506.5, 506.5, okay? And we're going to cover daylighting and how to do a spillway all at once right here. We're going to go up to my tools, go to grading, hit create grading, and this is what you would do if you wanted to do to daylight down, to finish off a slope at the edge of your site. Similar to, you know, if I wanted to daylight from the top of berm down to existing grade, I'd use this same tool. I'm going to target, instead of the EG, I'm going to target my FG, which is this berm, which sort of goes right through my spillway. And let me turn this here so I can see a little better. And I'm simply going to pick my, let's do a 4-to-1, why not? Slopes at 4-to-1 slope, nice and easy and mobile. Hit create grading. Pick the feature line here, and I get an issue. So why do I get that issue? Well, my grading is set to use the grading master site, not the temp. Remember, these feature lines are on the temp site. So I need to switch that. I hit set grading group and switch this to temp. Since it's the first time I'm using it, it's going to make me create a grading group. Go over here to hit grading group. Just hit OK. I know I didn't talk about this in detail. You don't really need to know what grading groups are. We're going to explode these grading objects anyways. It's a whole different thing, and grading objects are too unstable to leave unexploded, so it doesn't really matter. Hit OK. Now when I go ahead and hit create grading, I can select that bottom of the spillway there, hit this side, do entire length, yep, 4-to-1 slope, yep, sounds good. Do the other side. Like I said, grading objects, gotta explode them. No Civil 3D in this version yet. So go ahead and grab those outer lines, explode them. Okay, we're done with that grading group command. Essentially here it's just trimming stuff out. So I'm going to go ahead and use my feature line trim command, trim out the top of the walls here. Actually, those are 3D polylines for this project. And then I have all these extension lines coming up. I'm going to trim those out as well. And you can see it's getting all ugly looking, and you're thinking, oh, you're losing faith on me. But all I need to do is add this geometry into my surface. So I'm going to go back up here to my surfaces catalog, and now I have another issue. Since I used a grading object to project to this surface, it locked the surface. If I right-click on this grading group to delete it, I can't delete it. So what do I do in that situation? if I right-click on the surface and hit Surface Properties, and I go to my Definitions tab, I see my break line set there. There I can hit Remove from Definition, hit OK again. It says, do you want to rebuild? Sure. Surface goes blank. Do my Q select, layer, surface feature line, layer. Selects all my feature lines, it selects that whole layer. Notice no break line sets here anymore because I deleted it. Right click, add, 5 for supplementing distance, 0.01. Make sure to hit tab or OK. There's your spillway. So, then we went over a little bit here. I guess it took 8 minutes. If you have any questions, I'll hang on the line. I'll set my phone to take calls, so you can just call me on the phone if you do have some questions. I'll hang out here for a little bit, but essentially, hopefully this helped out and gets you in a direction you need to go. The concepts that we use to make this spillway projecting to finished surfaces, it's the same thing you do to make the bottom of a basin. We covered that CAD user group meetings a little bit as well, and so on and so forth. It's basically using the same concepts we talked about over and over and over again to finish out this complete site. Ultimately, you'll end in a final product that looks nice and clean. And, this file's still half ripped apart. If I open up the cleaned up drawing, and add the surfaces to, or add the, I thought I had this built already. But this is your final product that you end up with. Yeah, nice smooth surface. So, again, I'll hang out for a little bit. Thanks everybody for stepping in. We're going to continue this further on the engineers and designers group meetings, where I'll cover more concepts on grading. From what the information I took there, that's what people want to hear about the most at all these different kind of meetings. So we're just going to continue on with filling out how would I do this on this project, how would I connect the parking lots, how do you fill this around, and so on and so forth. It's, again, the tools are pretty simple. It's the concepts of how do you leverage those tools to do it very easily versus struggling with it. Thanks.